This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Beginning today's show is Allison Womack, Agricultural Program Specialist with the Kansas Farm Service Agency, as she shares what programs and deadlines are taking place and recognizes their state executive director leaving. Renee Tuttle with TAPS also joins to let listeners know about an upcoming banquet. K-State's Kathy Gehl, Kansas Corn's Emily Koop, and Kansas Soybean's Jancey continue the show previewing the 2025 Kansas Corn and Soybean Schools. Part of the Beef Cattle Institute's Cattle Chat podcast ends today's show as Brad White, Phillip Lancaster, and Bob Larson converse about the use of whole and cracked corn. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Wednesday show hearing from Agricultural Program Specialist with the Kansas Farm Service Agency, Allison Womack. Allison, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Shelby. Happy to be here.
Allison, a few different topics for us to talk about today, but beginning with a Farm Bill extension that is now through September 30th, 2025.
That's right. So the continuing resolution that was passed right before Christmas has extended the 2018 Farm Bill through the end of this fiscal year. So with that, we're going to anticipate some signups for DMC, the Dairy Margin Coverage Program. We also anticipate CRP signups such as Grassland, General, Continuous. I don't know of the dates of when those will be unrolled, so I would encourage you all to go to Farmers.gov and sign up for text or email alerts. You can do that on there. And so any signups that we have coming out, you'll get alerted on.
Allison, also some news to share with us when it comes to the Livestock Indemnity Program.
Right. With this lovely weather we've had the last week, I just want producers to be aware that the 2018 Farm Bill authorized the Livestock Indemnity Program, also known as LIP, that provides benefits to eligible livestock owners or contract growers for livestock deaths in excess of normal mortality caused by eligible loss conditions such as adverse weather, extreme cold, stuff like that. So if you've had some livestock losses over this last couple weeks, reach out to your county office, see if you're eligible, and go from there.
Also wanting to mention some authorization that's taken place for the Conservation Reserve Program when it comes to winter grazing.
That's right. So Kansas received a special one-time authorization from the Deputy Administrator for Farm Programs this year that allows grazing on CRP acreages based on State Executive Director approval. So if you're interested in running your cattle on or livestock on your CRP acreages, reach out to your county office, request the applicable paperwork, and get your approvals prior to any grazing activities. We're approved for winter grazing through March 1st of 2025. This is a one-time approval.
For people who are wanting to do CRP winter grazing, important that they do get approval after the paperwork before they put their livestock on?
That is correct. So this one-time authorization kind of takes a little bit more authority than just at your local level. This requires our SED's signature and authorization. So definitely reach out to your county office, get the applicable paperwork. They'll send it up to the executive director. He'll sign off on it. If approved, they'll let you know. And then once you get that approval, you can go ahead and let everything out.
There's also a deadline coming up that you wanted to mention, Allison, that's ending January 31st.
The deadline for wool, mohair, unshorn pelts, marketing assistant loans, and loan deficiency payments, LDPs and MALs, for both graded and ungraded wool. That deadline is going to be January 31st, 2025. So this is stuff that was shorn in 2024. That deadline is going to include all documentation and eligibility forms. So producers need to get all that into the county office by January 31st.
Is this something they should have already talked about with the Farm Service Agency office, or something that they could get started?
I would go ahead and reach out now if you haven't already. This is, at this point with the current Farm Bill, this is an annual certification, annual deadline, that January 31st. So for those wool producers across the state, they're probably pretty familiar with it. But for those just wanting to get started or participate with the Farm Service Agency, that's a big, big date for wool in our world.
Also want to make the mention, of course, some programs for specialty crop producers, and one of them being the Marketing Assistance for Specialty Crops.
The Marketing Assistance for Specialty Crops, we also call it MASC, It is a program that provides financial assistance to specialty crop producers to help them expand domestic markets or develop new markets for their crops. The deadline for this program has been extended. It's been pushed back to this upcoming Friday, January 10th, 2025. So if you produce a specialty crop, reach out to your local county office, see what you need to do to get signed up for that. We also have the Food Safety Certification for Specialty Crops, FSCSC. We love an acronym over here. That deadline is Friday, January 31st, 2025. That program covers a percentage of specialty crop operations costs to obtain or renew its on-farm food safety certification, as well as a portion of related expenses. So that deadline is Friday, January 31st. Reach out to your county office. I'm sure they're going to need some documentation, licenses, stuff like that from you. So reach out if you're interested in that.
And we'll hear more about the Women Managing the Farm conference that's taking place in the middle of February. But Allison, wanting to go ahead and give a quick push because it is something that the Farm Service Agency supports.
That's right. We love that. We think it's a great conference. We partner with them and help. So it's packed with nationally renowned keynote speakers, has tons of engaging breakout sessions, lots of networking opportunities. It's been bringing women together for 21 years. I've attended it. I've had a great experience each time I've gone. Find out more information, you'll want to check out womenmanagingthefarm.com.
And finally, Allison, wanting to mention some changes that the Farm Service Agency in Kansas will be experiencing.
That's right. So we have a new administration taking place later in the month. Next week, we'll be bidding a farewell to our state executive director, Dennis McKinney. Dennis's dedication to conservation and sustainable agriculture has empowered countless Kansas providers to protect and enhance our natural resources. I've enjoyed working with him, and his collaborative spirit and commitment to farmers, rural communities, all the employees across the state, and the agency as a whole has ensured a brighter future for Kansas agriculture. As he moves on to new endeavors, we want to all extend our deepest gratitude for his service and wish him the very best.
And also just wanting to make a quick mention, if people would like to come out and work for the Farm Service Agency.
We are always hiring. You can set up job preferences that can be catered to your location or what you're looking for on USAJobs.gov. You'll get alerts of any openings near you or what falls in that scope that you've set up. We have great benefits, great people to work with and for. So if you're interested, go on to USAJobs.gov, and we'd love to work with you.
That was Agricultural Program Specialist with the Kansas Farm Service Agency, Allison Womack. Before we cut to a break, we are now going to be joined by K-State Extension Associate with TAPS, Renee Tuttle, as she talks about the TAPS Banquet. Renee, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Renee, what is this TAPS Banquet?
So TAP stands for Testing Ag Performance Solutions. And if you haven't heard of it before, it is a farm management competition. So last year, over 34 teams with 98 participants from all over the state of Kansas and even across the country competed in a farm management competition. And now the corn has been harvested, the marketing is complete, and now the results have been tallied, and we're excited to reveal the big winners.
And what are some different categories that you will be announcing winners in?
So we will be revealing the winners, and actually the participants don't even know who won yet. So this is going to be an exciting night in 4 different categories. So the first is most economically profitable, and that focuses on net income. And we simulate that as a 2,000-acre farm based off of the different decisions that they made in the competition. The second is highest input use efficiency. And that looks at water use and nitrogen use versus yield. And so there's a whole water nitrogen intensification performance index, say that 10 times fast, that we focused on. And what we're really trying to show is that we can get a similar ROI, but still being able to conserve water and nitrogen resources. Our third award is most economically profitable at or below Q stable. And for those that aren't familiar with Q stable, different government agencies are working together to help conserve water, especially in the Ogallala Aquifer. So Q stable is the amount of water that you can irrigate by still recharging the aquifer at the same time. So they have determined that Q stable, so the amount that you can irrigate while recharging the aquifer in Colby, was 7.65 inches of water. So we're looking at who is most profitable while being at or below that level of irrigation. And finally, of course, it's not a yield contest, but hey, we're growing corn, so you may as well look at it. So we have the greatest corn yield, just to give a round of applause, for being part of the competition.
What are the details for this banquet?
Our banquet is next week, January 18th, Saturday in the evening. It's in Dodge City at the Boot Hill Casino and Resort Conference Center. And many folks may be asking, why Dodge City? Hey, we're working with Boot Hill Distillery, if that tells you anything, to bring forward a little TAPS surprise. But we'll be beginning at 5 p.m. with a social, followed by a meal, and we will have the award ceremony at 7 o'clock.
Who is welcome to attend?
Anyone is welcome to attend that is involved in agriculture and excited about learning more about the TAPS program. We mentioned last year it was in Colby. Next year we'll have teams in competitions in Colby and Garden City. So feel free to join us and feel free to share with friends, with cousins, with anybody that you think would be interested in coming. We know that we're a new program, and so we just want to get the good word out, and it'll be a fun night while we're sharing the awards.
Renee, is there an RSVP for this banquet?
Yes, we would like for you to RSVP just to make sure that we have enough food for everyone. And if you could visit K-State.edu/TAPS, TAPS, and that will take you to registration for our 2024 KSU TAPS Banquet.
Renee, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you.
That was K-State Extension Associate with TAPS, Renee Tuttle. I will link the RSVP link in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show talking about the 2025 Kansas corn and soybean schools with K-State Research and Extension's Kathy Gehl, Kansas Corn's Emily Koop, and Kansas Soybeans' Jancey Hall. Kathy, Emily, Jancey, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jancey, what are the Kansas corn and soybean schools?
The Kansas corn and soybean schools are brought to farmers by their checkoffs. So the Kansas Corn Commission and the Soybean Commission come together, and they partner with K-State Research and Extension to offer farmers the opportunity for a one-stop shop learning session. It's a day-long session with great research updates, economics, anything and everything about how to better grow the top fall crops, which are, of course, soybeans and corn. Lunches included in soybean and corn schools. And it's a great opportunity to connect with farmers, meet with the researchers, and just learn the best things to know to better your farm.
Kathy, what are some of those topics and people who will be speaking?
Oh, absolutely. So each school is tailored a little bit to the location. So they're location specific because each kind of quadrant of Kansas presents different challenges when it comes to soils and climates and how the cropping systems are kind of set up. Most of the schools will have something on agronomics. So we're looking at hybrids, planting dates, things like that have to do with the production system. There'll be a soil fertility talk at each school. There'll also be a talk from Sarah Lancaster on weed control and herbicide strategies, and updates on diseases for both corn and soybeans from Rodrigo Onofre with plant pathology. And then I think all the schools will have something on markets and the economics, like farm policy, things like that. So they're definitely tailored to a location. So when you're going to pick a school, it would, obviously location to you is more convenient, but also it's going to be more tailored to your system.
And at these 4 different locations, Jancey, as you mentioned, lunch is provided, and what will people be hearing during lunch?
You'll also get an update from Kansas corn and Kansas soybean while we're there. We'll be able to talk a little bit about policy, lots of things going on with the new election, new administration coming. So hitting on that from the corn perspective as well as soybean. Again, a lot of our policies are so tied together. Farm Bill is another big policy that lots of talk out there, lots of information. So we'll definitely get you an update on that. And then as well as an update on the commission, learn a little bit about some cool commission projects going on. So that's kind of short and sweet, give you some entertainment over the delicious lunch as well at all of the locations.
And obviously, we're talking with K-State Research and Extension, Kansas Soybean, Kansas Corn. And why is this collaboration something that everyone's organization sees is really important?
I think a lot of times when we talk as commodity organizations, we talk about Kansas corn farmers or Kansas soybean farmers. But at the end of the day, our farmers aren't just growing one crop, they're growing multiple. And when you can bring them together and talk about them both, because things that impact a soybean farmer impacting a corn farmer, because a lot of times those are the same farmers. And how can we best utilize everyone's time, from the farmers to the professionals with K-State Research and Extension, and bringing our farmers together, collaborating, getting everybody in one room for one day. It's a longer day, but it allows everybody to be together to hit all the hot button topics and ensure that we're using the best of everybody's time and getting the information out to make farmers better.
And Kathy, just from the perspective of K-State Research and Extension, a lot of departments also coming together to help make this happen.
Yes, it's a true collaborative effort, even within our own organization. We look at agronomy. We have a specialist from agronomy, not just on campus in Manhattan, but also at our research stations. We'll hit some of the schools as well. And then we have, entomology, we have plant path. There's a lot that goes into these schools from KSRE. We also provide resources for the attendees to pick up. We should have copies of the Chemical Weed Guide for 2025, which is probably the most popular KSRE publication out there. A lot of hard work goes into getting all the new herbicides and the new, all that kind of updated for each year. There'll be hard copies of that. Also, we updated the 2 production guides for corn and soybean, and so there will be hard copies of those available for our farmers or the whatever attendees are there that would like to pick them up.
And attendees also have the opportunity to earn some credits?
Yes, we have already received approval from KDA for 1A commercial applicator credits. So there'll be 2 opportunities at each location to get a credit for that 1A. And then we've applied for CCA credits. And so each location has the opportunity to have 4 credits earned of CCA for the certified crop advisors.
And something I always want to make the point of when we have these days is that people have the opportunity to also ask the specialist and other people from the checkoffs plenty of questions.
Absolutely. There'll be plenty of time to ask questions. That's what I love about it. The speakers give great updates, great presentations, but there's always time for questions at the end. So don't be afraid to speak up. You can actually submit questions online through our registration as well. So if you're curious about something in the area, like Kathy mentioned, these are great because they're really local. So, tar spot is probably going to be a huge topic from the corn perspective up in Northeast Kansas. So submit those questions early, and we try to get those to the researchers as well, so they can answer those in the presentation. So definitely a great opportunity to ask questions for your local farmers that are there, and then the researchers and specialists that will be there too.
Like Emily said, I think these schools are for you and designed for each region. So what's impacting your farm is likely impacting your neighbors, and allowing it to be super specific, asking questions, having those conversations makes the schools better for everyone. And we really enjoy when folks come and ask those questions. So
what are the times, dates, locations for these schools?
Yeah, you can go to our website at kscorn.com/schools, and you can find all that information listed, but I'll kind of run through them really quick. We're going to knock them all out in 1 week, so be across Kansas. We start next week on Tuesday, January 14th, and this first one will be in Highland, Kansas, so up in Northeast Kansas at Geiger Ag. Again, you can find the addresses and locations on our website there. You can also view the agenda, so all those topics that Kathy hit on, you can view those online as well. So Tuesday, January 14th at Highland, Wednesday, January 15th in Parsons, Kansas, and this will be at the Southeast Research and Extension Center. Thursday, January 16th at Heston, Kansas, and this is at the AGCO facility. And then Friday, we'll wrap up in Oakley, Kansas at the Buffalo Bill Cultural Center. So all great locations kind of spread across the state. Again, that's kscorn.com/schools, and that's where you can go check out the agendas, double check the addresses and the location, dates and times, and then register as well. And all of these schools, they start with registration at 8:30 a.m. First speaker kicks off at 9 and will be wrapped up by 3 p.m. that day. Lunch included, like Jancey said.
And are all these schools free for people to attend?
Absolutely.
Emily, is there a time frame of which you would prefer people go ahead and get registered by?
Yes, we ask that people register by January 9th, and this is just super helpful for meal counts. But even if you don't make that deadline, please go online and register, or go ahead and give our office a call. It doesn't matter if you register after the deadline. We'll still take you, even if we take in plenty of walk-ins the day of. So we still want you there, again, a free event. But if you can register by January 9th, we would appreciate that for meal counts.
Kathy, Emily, Jancey, as we round out today's conversation, what's your last push of encouragement for people to take the time to come out to these schools?
Well, I think from KSRE for sure, it's your chance to get face-to-face with our specialists. They go around the state and they're covering a lot of ground. And so being able to be there when they're there and ask questions, there's been a lot of changing, especially from a disease front across Kansas between corn stunt and tar spot and other things with soybean diseases. And just there's been a lot of changes. And so hitting off on a good start in January ahead of the growing season, I think it would make it worth your time to be there.
I just agree with everything Kathy said. Would love to see you there. There's lots of meetings in January, especially this winter season. But I think this is a great one to really touch base with those experts in the field. We have a lot of K-State experts. We're even inviting some from the private sector this year, kind of trying out something new in the agenda. So at least one at each location, just to get some different outside perspectives as well. And so we're just really excited about that. Again, I think it's just a great opportunity to connect with the experts as well.
I also just believe that this is our farmers, it's your checkoff dollars that are putting these schools on and making this happen. So it's to your best interest to be able to go there and check it out. And I think, getting tips and tricks and ways to incrementally improve your farm can make a big difference, especially as we're heading into some tighter market years. And how can we all farm better, work better on your behalf? So I think it's a great opportunity to come and connect and learn.
Thank you to the checkoffs again. Like Jancey said, this is your checkoff dollars. Do want to give a big shout out to our premier sponsor, Pioneer, and a supporting sponsor, Farm Credit Associations of Kansas. That also really just helps with the meal and covering some of those extra costs. So thank you to our sponsors as well that help with that.
Kathy, Emily, Jancey, I appreciate you all taking the time to join us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Kathy Gehl with K-State Research and Extension, Emily Koop with Kansas Corn, and Jancey Hall with Kansas Soybean. As Emily mentioned, you can find out more information at kansascorn.com/schools. I will link it in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break, but stick around because we have more for you up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we end our Wednesday show with part of the Beef Cattle Institute's Cattle Chat podcast. Today, we're joined by Beef Cattle Institute's Brad White, Phillip Lancaster, and Bob Larson.
Phillip, I wanted to follow up with you. You and I talked a little bit about this one before, but we had another listener question that came in, and essentially, they are feeding a few steers that they're finishing out on their farm. And the question was, I could get cracked corn from the local feed store, or I can get whole corn that I'm feeding. Is there a price difference, efficiency difference that I should be considering there?
So, there's a difference in the digestibility of whole corn and cracked corn, and a little bit. It depends on what type of animal you're feeding it to as well. So in this situation where he's feeding out a few steers, he's going to be feeding a high level of corn. And so in that type of diet, rumination is a little bit less, and so you get that improvement in digestibility because the animal is not doing as much mechanical breaking down of those corn kernels. In a cow, where I'm feeding just a few pounds of corn to a cow on a forage diet as an energy supplement, she's chewing her cud a lot more, and she's going to do a lot of the mechanical breakdown of that corn. And so the cost benefit there depends a little bit on what animal I'm feeding it to. If I'm feeding it to a cow as a supplement, I'm not spending the money on cracking that corn. Even though if I do see a few kernels of corn in the manure, I'm still not too worried about it. On a steer that I'm feeding, that's a different question. And so it comes down to economics. So like his question, is it cost effective for me to pay for that cracked corn? So it depends on the price of corn. So you're going to get about a 5% improvement in digestibility, about a 5% or so improvement in net energy for gain out of that corn. And so doing a little bit of math, and he needs to do this in his situation, but if the feed mill's charging you $10 a ton to crack that corn, the price of corn needs to be higher than about $6 or so per bushel for it to pay off for that extra $10 a ton in corn to balance that. With the price of corn right now, even though you're gonna see more whole corn kernels and stuff in the manure, from a cost effectiveness perspective, with $4 corn, it doesn't seem like it's going to pay off to pay for that extra cracking.
So the biggest difference is the 5% in digestibility that you're talking about between those. And when we see that whole corn in the feces, does that mean it hasn't been digested at all?
Not necessarily. It's going to be less digested. And if you put on some gloves and dig through some patties and pull out some of those kernels, you can probably find some holes through the hole where the bacteria have penetrated the hole and have actually digested at least some of the starch out of the inside of that kernel. And if you slice open some kernels, you'll see that some of them are somewhat hollow where that has been fermented out of the inside of that kernel.
That sounds like a great after-school science project, right? That would be a great science fair entry.
Oh, absolutely. I think that'd win the 8th grade science award.
Yeah. How many? Well, let's get some folks on that right away.
Phillip, you got a couple boys.
Yeah. So thanks for answering that, Phillip, and I think great listener questions. We always appreciate those, and we appreciate our podcast producer, Maddie Drake, who does a great job. She's here in Ag Communications at Kansas State, and she puts a lot of these podcasts together.
Once again, that was the Beef Cattle Institute's Brad White, Phillip Lancaster, and Bob Larson. If you'd like to listen to the full episode, there are a few different ways you can do that. One is by searching for Cattle Chat on your favorite podcast streaming platform. You can follow a link in today's show notes on agtoday.net, or you can go to their website, ksubci.org. And I would like to remind you, you can send them in questions at bci@ksu.edu. Once again, all of these resources will be linked in today's show notes on agtoday.net. That's all we have for you today on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more for you tomorrow.